Every trail camera should have killed the Appalachian beast legends, yet the mountains refuse. Biology actually backs up that stubborn local dread. Genetics teams keep pulling completely unnamed species out of dirt that everyone thought was completely mapped. That biological blind spot guarantees the terrifying accounts of wrong-looking animals keep haunting the timber today. The oldest stories here never mention ghosts. Cherokee ceremonial masks do not carve a soft spirit. They hammer out a monstrous physical outsider with a broad, flat face, a heavy brow, and a wide jaw. That shape feels like a bear, but carries a cat-like menace. Scott's Irish mountain tales grabbed that exact same ugly frame. Lumber camp workers kept reporting a bulky, dark-furred animal with a pushed-in snout and bizarrely long forelimbs. It possessed a horrifying habit of rising up on two legs. A normal bear stands briefly to sniff the wind. This creature stayed upright across open ground. Modern hunting reports drag that identical body right back into daylight. The 1967 Kentucky case described a 600-pound brute raiding a livestock pen. It carried reddish eyes and that same flat bulldog face. The forelimbs worked exactly like human hands. It grabbed and pulled at a goat with horrifying intention. A clumsy black bear presents a known physical problem. But a massive thing actively testing a cabin latch? That pushes the panic into trespassing. The Kentucky witness stated the animal did not grunt. It threw out chattering whoops, mixed with a scream that sounded entirely too human. A Tennessee logger saw something similar twice, near his camp, during the 1970s. He estimated the musky-smelling beast weighed well over 600 pounds. It ran bipedally for 100 yards while tossing massive logs aside like kindling. The face read as a cat instead of a bear. Frightened men usually bloat their lies with extra legs or storm powers. This specific legend keeps returning stripped down and brutally physical. Dark fur, heavy body, long arms, flat face. That rigid consistency hits harder than 100 wild details because it feels like a damaged memory. The region understands what real predators look like. A hunter forgives a bad angle through brush or the fast lie the woods tell at dusk. What wrecks that rural confidence? A pattern of moments failing in the exact same three directions. The body stands too long, the arms manipulate objects, and the voice comes out scrambled. Other shapes break the catalog even worse. The knot deer rips apart the basic mental map of the most common animal in the eastern woods. A 2010's Ohio hunter closed the distance on a buck, only to watch the anatomy completely fail. The eyes sat too far forward on the skull. The legs bent backward at the wrong joint. Then the animal bolted without making a single sound. Anyone who knows deer expects the loud crashing of brush when they break cover. Silence from a panicked herbivore feels like a clean violation of natural law. A 2023 Appalachian report twisted that deer anomaly even further. The witness saw the creature stand perfectly still while turning its head fully backward like an owl. The eyes locked with intelligent focus before the animal briefly sprinted on its hind legs. The local hunting dogs went berserk and absolutely refused to track the scent. Rural men trust a good hound before they trust their own nerves. Dogs recognize old bear, fresh deer, coyote edge, and something rotten hiding in the laurel. When a pack rejects the trail, the human witness suddenly stops looking foolish. The woods themselves are validating the alarm. Science demands a carcass to register a formal name. A museum drawer cannot preserve a cat-faced feeling. North America counts around 500 recognized mammal species. Biologists back that number with constant surveys. Trapping, genetics, and massive fieldwork. Big bodies require vast ranges, massive calorie counts, and frequent movement. That biological math makes large hidden predators nearly impossible. How does a massive beast vanish? It drops giant scat and creates obvious kill sites. A breeding population needs enough numbers to survive disease and bad winters. Someone eventually hits one with a truck on a dark back road. 200 years of stories keep walking these ridges today, while science constantly finds empty hands. No clean strand of DNA sits under a laboratory light. No bones cleanly tie to the legend. That missing body flips the strongest evidence into the sharpest debunking tool. The trail camera network turns that absence into a crushing weight. Millions of lenses sit strapped to trees, fence posts, and creek cuts across the entire Appalachian chain. They catch bobcats, otters, badgers, and endless deer day and night. The known cast of animals floods the memory cards with relentless honesty. What kind of beast dodges millions of infrared lenses? An absolute impossibility. It must somehow detect and avoid plastic boxes from outside the sensory range of a deer. It would have to deliberately choose the worst possible terrain, skipping the game trails and saddles where cameras wait. It must treat infrared light like a physical fire. That requires an animal built around absolute refusal rather than adaptation. Nature never hands out perfect stealth without enforcing massive physical trade-offs. Gain extreme caution, lose critical calories. Avoid all human paths, severely limit your breeding pool. Real animals pay for what they are with mistakes. The legend shrinks from king of the mountain into a fugitive hiding in the cracks. The camera age crushed the easy monster claim. The machines regularly show how a normal bear, standing half upright in blown-out night footage, looks totally insane. They reveal how motion blur turns a fleeing coyote into a twisted nightmare. Yet the debunking wall contains massive holes. The Appalachian chain runs for 2,000 miles of folded slopes and broken sight lines. A trail camera watches a tiny 50-foot cone, not an entire mountain. Move that lens 6 feet left. An entirely different hidden world passes by unrecorded. Batteries constantly corrode in the damp air. Sun glare completely wipes crucial frames. A curious black bear routinely destroys a survey box before the target animal ever arrives. The mountain network is incredibly vast by old standards, but totally inadequate for absolute certainty. The terrain itself functions as a massive trap for life. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park holds more salamander kinds than anywhere else on Earth. That staggering biodiversity happens exactly because the ground is chopped up, soaked, and hostile to easy travel. Broken terrain guarantees broken contact between populations. Broken contact forces separate lives. Given enough centuries, separated lives stop being minor variations and become completely distinct species. A wet crease under rock and leaf litter becomes an impenetrable border for a tiny amphibian. The mountains stack diversity in deeply hidden layers. That isolation engine keeps manufacturing completely unknown life this morning, right alongside modern highways. 30 salamander species sound small until the genetic mapping shatters the old boundaries. Fungi fruit only during the absolute perfect damp week, completely vanishing from notice for decades. Environmental DNA pulls rare fish signatures out of creeks where nobody saw a single fin. A land snail rides out its entire existence in a patch of damp ground smaller than a rural living room. More than 100 completely unique snail species live absolutely nowhere else. Biologists count over 200 millipede varieties. That sets a world high for a place people assumed was entirely mapped. This constant tiny discovery completely wrecks the safety of the official lists. 10 new cave spiders emerged from these heavily walked mountains very recently. Every single one represents a massive failure of the old science. The ground beat the experts again. Discovery currently happens largely after the body is already dead and boxed. A museum skin sits quietly in a drawer for 50 years. Modern DNA sequencing hits that preserved tissue like a biological crowbar. The old label shatters. A completely new animal enters the books without a single new trap firing. Genetics destroys the illusion of a finished map. Dry, open dirt should be easy to map, right? Wrong. The Idaho Snake River Plains look totally flat and brutally easy to survey, yet researchers split a ground squirrel into a totally new species. in 2025. That river barrier quietly did the exact same dividing work as a mountain ridge. If a completely normal mammal hides inside a bad label in the open western dirt, the dark Appalachian folds become a terrifying prospect. The region holds thousands of wet cuts, cold pockets, and high spruce islands stranded above warmer valleys. These tiny environments keep separating lines of life right now. The public expects discovery to mean massive beasts crashing through virgin jungles. Real discovery means realizing the old tools were simply too blunt. A catalog represents a fragile snapshot of the exact moment it was printed. Sharper lenses reveal an entirely different crowd standing behind the main subjects. This biological reality forces a brutal reassessment of the monster lore. A 600-pound cat-faced bear defies every caloric and spatial rule the mountains enforce. Yet the mountains unquestionably hide thousands of smaller living things from extremely competent hunters. The line between myth and biology blurs heavily in the deep laurel. The booger bear and not deer live exclusively in the psychological gap between absolute proof and total debunking. A hunter sees a wrong shape. The camera fails to catch it. The brain forcefully predicts the worst possible answer. The isolation of the terrain validates that sudden, terrifying spike in adrenaline. The missing body actually fuels the cultural power of the sighting. A dead, tagged beast instantly becomes just another ordinary entry on a clipboard. It loses all ability to haunt a ridge. Remaining unclassified keeps the threat alive and deeply personal for every man walking a dark timberline. Those men are not easily fooled tourists. They understand the exact sound a cougar throws through the trees. They instantly recognize the heavy drop of a bluffing black bear. When those specific men lower their voices to describe a chattering bipedal trespasser, they are recording a massive failure of their own local knowledge. They know the penalty for sounding crazy at the local diner. Stating that a deer bent its legs backward invites immediate brutal mockery from peers. Swallowing that social cost gives the testimony an ugly, stubborn weight. They risk their rural status precisely because the memory refuses to fade. Human memory bends violently around genuine fear. The mind frantically fills visual gaps with the closest available nightmare. The Cherokee legends, the lumber camp warnings, and the modern hunting forms all bleed together into a single cultural filter. The witness sees a shadow, and his brain paints the bulldog face. Yet the pure biology of the southern Appalachians keeps whispering that the official counts are perpetually wrong. The same wet ridges that hide an undiscovered green salamander line might just harbor something worse. An incredibly rare, deeply mutated behavioral outlier of a known predator. That tiny sliver of scientific doubt keeps the panic burning today. The camera lens stops at the edge of the creek. The thermal drone misses the deeply undercut rock wall. The battery dies exactly when the shadows stretch the longest. The region actively resists total surveillance, leaving massive physical voids where a wrong-looking animal can slip through completely unseen. Every single year, the biological backlog grows instead of shrinking. The mountains aggressively stack life into isolated pockets that outrun human patience. A hiker kicks a rotting log and walks right past a completely unrecorded fungal web. The ground is literally crawling with unfinished evolutionary sorting this very second. That hidden complexity guarantees the scary stories will never completely die. The environment constantly proves that human eyesight misses the deepest truths of the forest. If the dirt conceals 10 unknown cave spiders, the mind easily convinces itself the timber conceals a massive bipedal horror. The uncertainty is geographically real. A man standing alone at dusk feels that geographical weight pressing against his spine. The trees seem older than the science trying to organize them. The creek bottoms look capable of swallowing a full-size truck, let alone a carcass. The familiar roads suddenly feel like incredibly thin ribbons cutting through absolute hostility. The oldest question in these hills has absolutely nothing to do with finding a monster's grave. It asks why a deeply familiar, endlessly tracked landscape repeatedly forces extremely capable men to doubt their own eyes. The true mystery is the terrifying endurance of the anomaly itself. The Appalachian terrain continually manufactures a space where logic physically breaks down. A shadow stands up wrong. A stick snaps too loudly. A predator's face flattens into a nightmare. The known list stops matching the behavior list, and the hunter is suddenly the hunted. This ancient mountain chain definitely has more names to give the official record. Somewhere in a wet fold of ridgeline under completely ordinary dark leaves, the next major biological split is already breathing. The old ground keeps its own deeply strange time.